Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Thank you for joining us today. Best-selling author and host of TV's #1 daytime talk show, Dr. Phil, well, he's known for dispensing his very unique brand of advice. But what many of you may not know is that he's one of nearly 28 million Americans who have type 2 diabetes. And he's been managing that condition for more than 25 years. He joins us here today on Health Professional Radio along with Dr. Pamela Kushner to talk about living with type 2 diabetes and offer us some tips on managing the disease. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Dr. Pamela Kushner and Dr. Phil.
Hi.
Hey, Neal.
Glad that you could join us today. Now, I had no idea that you were living with type 2 diabetes, and I guess you were diagnosed when you were, living life and everything was going great, yeah?
Neal, I've probably had this disease maybe 5 or 10 years before it was ever diagnosed, and that's the thing about this disease. It's very insidious, and it not treated, it can really erode some other aspects of your health. But I was coming up with some huge energy deficits in the middle of the afternoon, went to my doctor, and he says, yeah, sure enough, you've got type 2 diabetes. And he said, bad news, we can't cure this, but good news is you really can manage this. You really can minimize the impact on your life if you will meet this head on, you will educate yourself about it, and you will actively manage this disease. And so I've spent the last 25 years educating myself and being a very active manager. And so what I've done is partnered with AstraZeneca, who has been gracious enough to allow me to create this website called onitmovement.com, where I really speak to all of these type 2 diabetics about how in the world to manage this disease so it doesn't have a big impact on their lives. So
you've come up with this plan. Is every plan different for every person that's got type 2 diabetes?
Every type 2 diabetic is different from every other type 2 diabetic, but there are management strategies that can apply to all type 2 diabetics. For example, one of them is educate yourself about your disease. Every type 2 diabetic needs to do that. One of my suggestions is build a treatment team centered around your physician. And that might include a nutritionist, exercise physiologist, include your spouse, your family. That's common to every type 2 diabetic, even though, as Dr. Kushner will well articulate, each type 2 diabetic is different in their own way.
Now, Dr. Kushner, why is it so important that you treat type 2 diabetes in such a fashion?
The reason it's important is that type 2 diabetes is a chronic condition. It's not going away. And it is a progressive condition that if it is not managed and treated appropriately, and the earlier the better, it can result in very serious complications such as kidney disease, vision changes, nerve damage or neuropathy, as other people may call it. And overall, if you have this progression of the disease, it's much harder to treat it. So how each individual can take an active role is to go to your doctor, get an individualized treatment goal so that you know where you have to go, and then you move forward. And the onitmovement.com website gives you some ideas about how you might move forward and how Dr. Phil was able to manage his type 2 diabetes.
Well, like any other management plan, nobody's perfect. How do you deal with your patients who, I guess, fall off the wagon as far as managing their type 2 diabetes?
Great question, Neal. And let me tell you how I handled this. First of all, welcome to the human race. You have fallen off the wagon. I mean, there is no perfect human that I know of. So the first thing you want to do is lose the guilt. It's not a useful emotion. Instead of beating yourself up, say, why did I fall off the wagon? So that next time you can perfect your plan and plan in advance. If there's something really homemade ice cream, you're going to a birthday party, well, then before you go to that birthday party, eat something healthy so that you're going to be able to talk to yourself and have a better healthy choice moving forward. The other thing you bring up, Neal, is something that I want to address, and I know this is dear to Dr. Phil's heart as a clinical psychologist, and that is that there is a social stigma and there is an emotional and psychological burden to having type 2 diabetes that is often not recognized. The type 2 diabetic patient has to manage diet, exercise, medications, and other people's expectations. So it's really important to first recognize that this exists, and then you can go on and challenge that
And Dr. Phil, as a psychologist, what advice do you have for others who may share some of the stigma, as maybe you did?
Well, you got to get at peace with yourself first, and people feel judged because they are. I mean, there really is a social stigma to it because people think type 2 diabetics, it's a disease of choice. They choose it by being lazy slugs or not exercising and eating poorly and all. And those can have some contribution to it. But as Dr. Kushner points out, there are a lot of other contributing factors. And I think you have to be very honest with yourself. And you got to sit down and say, look, there's no denial here. I can't pretend because I can't see this on an X-ray. Mm-hmm. I can't pretend that this doesn't exist. It does exist. It's there. And it may be silent on a given day, but if I'm not managing it, it's eroding my overall health. And while I say that if you manage it, you minimize it, that doesn't mean that we don't have different challenges. Like, for example, right now, we're coming into summer. I love summertime. Yeah. But you know what? It is a different time for type 2 diabetics because it's a high temptation time. Lots of backyard barbecues. You're going to the lake. We need to recognize that those are high temptations for us and plan for that. We need to redefine rewards and say, look, a banana split may be a big reward for somebody else, but it's not for us because our system doesn't handle it well. And here's the deal. When you fall off the wagon, when you get off your program or your plan, don't feel guilty. Start fresh the next day. Realize, hey, I'm a human being, so I didn't have a great day yesterday. Today's a new day. I'm not going to waste time feeling guilty. I'm going to start fresh. And if you use those kind of candid, realistic attitudes, you'll do a good job managing this disease.
Now, where can our listeners go online and get some more information about type 2 diabetes and the On It movement?
Well, there are two places. I'll tell you one. Dr. Kushner can tell you the other. OnItMovement.com. You'll find my program with all 6 steps, and then there's another great website.
www.ada.org. That's the American Diabetes Association website with lots of good, reliable information.
Great. Well, I thank you both for coming in and sharing with us today, Dr. Phil and Dr. Pamela Kushner, up here talking about type 2 diabetes, living with the disease, and managing it. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm.